Good afternoon. Former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian has now hit back at bombshell findings by the Independent Commission Against Corruption that the former Premier engaged in serious corrupt conduct while in office. The ICAC found Ms Berejiklian breached ministerial standards when she promoted projects linked to her ex-partner Daryl Maguire while keeping their relationship secret. The report also criticising how she turned a blind eye to his corrupt behaviour.
Mr Speaker, Mr President, my name's Lewis, my colleague Catherine from the ICAC. We're here this morning to present our investigation report into the matter called Operation Keppel. The report today makes serious corrupt conduct findings against two individuals, the former member for Wagga Wagga, the former Premier. Here is our report. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
It was a moment in history, and our state politics reporter Liz Daniels has been following developments throughout the day. Liz, we just have heard from the former Premier what she said.
That's right. Well, unsurprisingly, Davina Gladys Berejiklian is not taking this corruption finding lying down. This is the statement she has released from her position at Optus headquarters, where she now works. Serving the people of New South Wales was an honour and a privilege. At all times, I have worked my hardest in the public interest. Nothing in this report demonstrates otherwise. Thank you to members of the public for their incredible support. This will sustain me always. The report is currently being examined by my legal team. Critical there that Gladys Berejiklian's legal team is looking at this, and as I said, there is no way they will take this lying down. She certainly still does, though, acknowledge that she has the public support, and I think she is really relying on the fact that she still does have that public support.
Let's go back through the report. 2 volumes, 700 pages in total. Is there a strong case against her and then against Daryl Maguire?
Well, there are 2 separate volumes, as you said, 2 volumes. The first volume, about 300 pages, goes into the dealings of Daryl Maguire, his business dealings. ICAC has found he engaged in serious corrupt conduct. It has recommended the Director of Public Prosecutions press charges against Daryl Maguire. But, critically, the second volume is into Gladys Berejiklian. It looks at her conduct. It has found she is also engaged in serious corrupt conduct, but there is a key difference. The ICAC has not said that the Director of Public Prosecutions should commence a criminal prosecution. Effectively, the reasons that it gives are right at the back of that 300-page volume, and it says that there is effectively insufficient evidence to prove corruption to a criminal standard. So ICAC there acknowledging that while it can use certain evidence to rely upon a corruption finding, that same finding can't be made in a court of law without certain evidence. One of those things is actually Gladys Berejiklian's testimony. In a court of law, she has the right to remain silent, and that means ICAC effectively says without that testimony, they would not be able, a court of law would not be able to find her corrupt.
And that's the extraordinary twist in all of this. At the heart of this, and we'll never forget those hearings where it was such a public ventilation of a deeply private relationship. We thought all of it had been laid bare at the time, but this report today actually reveals more transcripts of phone taps and text messages as well.
That's right. So ICAC has told us this afternoon that this latest phone tap that it has released in this report is actually, the audio of it is suppressed. It will never release the audio of it, but it has released a transcript, and we do have that for you there. It says in it that Daryl Maguire and Gladys Berejiklian were having a conversation over the phone in early 2018. Daryl Maguire says to Gladys Berejiklian, "Glad, even when you were the Premier, I am the boss, all right." Berejiklian responds, "Yes, I know." So it gives you an insight into the power dynamic in this relationship, and it was humiliating for her, Davina, to have this relationship played out so publicly. We all remember that day back in October 2020 when she was dragged into the witness box and had this secret relationship played out publicly, remembering not colleagues, not even her family knew that she was secretly seeing Daryl Maguire. But ICAC has declared today that she did have a public duty to detail and disclose that relationship, and it's found that effectively in not disclosing that relationship and in also acting on his behalf. You know, he was lobbying for things like grants for his own electorate, for a shooting club and a Riverina Conservatorium of Music. She, according to ICAC, acted on that in his interest and not in the public interest, and therefore that is that conflict of interest that she had. She was juggling both relationships, the relationship with the public and the relationship with Daryl Maguire, and ICAC says she chose Daryl Maguire. It
has been a bombshell day. OK, Liz Daniels, thank you. It is also a sitting day at New South Wales Parliament, and the state political leaders have responded to these shock findings throughout the morning. Premier Chris Minns learning of the report while he was at a Sydney Swans event.
Look, a couple of things I want to say from the beginning. Firstly, this report's taken way too long. I think that's been generally recognised across the political spectrum in New South Wales. The second point here is that nothing in this report takes away, I don't think, from Premier Berejiklian's handling of the COVID emergency, which I still regard as being excellent. It's important, however, for all politicians in New South Wales and anyone in public life or positions of leadership to understand that we must manage conflicts of interest and, in particular, declare them.
What has been too long in the making, but we finally have it, and as an opposition we'll be looking at it as closely as possible and as quickly as possible, but given the circumstances of the last sitting day before the winter recess, we haven't had time to look at it in great detail. The findings suggest completely reprehensible behaviour by Daryl Maguire. He has brought disgrace upon himself and disgrace upon the Parliament by the conduct that's found in the ICAC report.
Another criticism in this was the delays into the findings of this report. Chris Minns and opposition leader Mark Speakman both suggesting future cases may face time limits. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister is about to wrap up a whirlwind tour of the Solomon Islands, but questions remain about whether an Australian Defence and Police presence will remain on the ground. Eliza Edwards reports from Honiara.
Before the sun had even risen, the Deputy Prime Minister had hit the ground running, fighting off the humidity in Honiara. During a packed 24 hours here, Richard Marles sat down for a crucial meeting with the Solomons Prime Minister, Manasseh Sogavare.
Thank you very much. That is beautiful.
Manasseh Sogavare announcing a review of the security pact, including the presence of Australian Defence Force and Federal Police, who are due to leave the Solomons in coming months. The government is keen for our personnel to remain here so that China doesn't fill the void with more of their police, something that was enabled by a controversial security pact signed by the Solomons and Beijing last year.
We understand Solomons is a sovereign country who will have whatever relationships it wants to have, and that's perfectly fine. But we see to be the natural partner of choice. That's our posture, and we will continue to present in that way.
This morning, the Deputy PM visited a school that's one of 7 sites being transformed into accommodation for the upcoming Pacific Games with the help of Australian aid money.
It is being here, it is providing attention, it's asking this government, Solomon Islands government, where we can help the most and standing ready to provide that help. And we're doing all of those, and it is being noticed, and I actually have a sense of confidence about where the relationship's going.
Australia is a major donor and a decades-long security partner to the Solomons, but with China seeking to strengthen its influence in the region, there is a lot more work happening to ensure we remain the Solomons' #1 defence partner.
Presumed human remains have been found among the wreckage of the Titan sub, which went missing 10 days ago. Twisted scraps of Ocean Gate's wreck were hauled back to land today, and our US correspondent Jonathan Kersley has more.
This is a significant but sad development in the case of Ocean Gate's Titan sub, which went in search of the Titan wreckage some 10 days ago. It had 5 people on board who all lost their lives when the sub suffered a catastrophic implosion after going in search of the Titanic wreckage. Among those on board was Ocean Gate's CEO, Stockton Rush. Today, the wreckage of the Titan sub was brought into shore and it was hauled onto shore. Among it, the end caps as well as the porthole that Mr Rush and the 4 other people on board would have been able to peer through as they went down in search of that Titanic wreckage. The US Coast Guard confirmed that human remains have been found in amongst the wreckage of the Titan sub and were carefully recovered and will now now be analysed by medical professionals. That is so they can determine exactly how many people they are from and who they belong to. The pieces of the Titan sub itself are going to be crucial for investigators as they try to work out exactly what went wrong and what caused the implosion.
If you squeeze in the middle, you probably pop the ends off, and that's what you see here. Hopefully somewhere in that wreckage, in that melange of big pieces and the tiny pieces, for instance, a memory card, a GoPro, a cell phone, will be the clues about what happened at that instant.
That is essentially the path forward now for investigators to try and piece together the wreckage bit by bit, to examine the remains, to find out exactly who they belong to, and to provide answers to the families of the victims about exactly what caused this implosion, exactly what caused these 5 people to lose their lives. We are being warned this work is going to be painstaking, it is going to be long, and it is going to be some time before any answers.